Alrighty, so the other day we did feature a video that did show off some of the better attachments in... Can you not look at me while I'm trying to test this shit out, man? Anyway, we did find out some of the better attachments in some of the assault rifle categories. Like the Bruiser grip turns out is actually better than the Field Agent grip for some reason. Anyway, this is coming up again with some inconsistencies with some of the attachments in Warzone, of course, and today we are looking at the rifled barrel with some of the SMGs. This is the barrel that does increase our damage range, of course, but keep this in mind, it doesn't actually affect something like assault rifles. It particularly only affects a couple of SMGs, maybe. We're looking at the MAC-10 and, of course, the AK-74U here today as our example, but I think this does apply to some of the other SMGs as well. Basically, the interesting information that we have found out here today, of course, is basically the rifled barrel with the SMGs basically increases the amount of recoil control that you do get, so it is actually easy to hit shots. Also included with the barrel, you do get increased damage range. This dude is still so keen for me. Anyway, as we did the other day, we're going to be testing this out a couple of times, showing the recoil sprays and getting on with the job. So, starting us off here, we have the recoil spray pattern of the original MAC-10, no attachments or anything like that, and it looks something like this. So of course that looks a little bit like right to left. It's fairly standard in terms of a curve. And then we of course move back over here. We'll do that again, basically just a similar spot and run that again. Again, basically just a fairly similar curve right to left, of course. Then if we do change over to something like this particular barrel option, we will show off the recoil control pattern with this rifle barrel and see if it is actually a little bit different. Anyway, so we are of course back here in our spot. We crouch again and we fire some shots here. And you can see, I don't even think we need to actually walk up here and see the bullets, but I mean, like look at the difference here. This is like at least 20% better than the next variant, of course. Now you see that curves up and to the left there, and look at this version. It's basically up and to the left as well, but it is about 20% smaller, and this is with, of course, the rifled barrel for this SMG. We're just going to do this again just to sort of have a bit of completion here. I mean, that's pretty clear cut in terms of a recoil control reduction in terms of this barrel, which is pretty goofy. Like, none of the barrels are actually supposed to decrease recoil. Like, that's pretty weird. So, of course, you do get a 20% reduction with the rifled barrel in terms of your recoil control when using something like the MAC-10. Of course, we're going to test out something like an AK-74U here now just to show that the comparison is still accurate. Alrighty, now that the bullet marks have, of course, cleared up from this particular situation here, this is the naked AK-74U, no attachments or anything like that, and this is, of course, the recoil pattern that does come along with that. You can see here that it does actually trail off quite nicely up and to the right. This makes it fairly easy to control and just sort of trails off very, very nicely up and to the right, of course. So again, we are going to run this again in a similar spot and try and replicate it as well. And again, you just see that it does trail off nicely up and to the right, which is fairly standard for something like one of these weapons. Now, of course, we're going to switch over to the rifled barrel and show off what that can do with the AK-74U. And you're probably going to end up changing some class setups with this thing because it is actually pretty ridiculous how strong this sort of recoil control reduction actually is. So again, with this particular rifled barrel option, we see a recoil pattern that does look something like this. This was a little test fire that we did have before, but this is the real deal here. I mean, you can already tell just by looking at this recoil control pattern that again, it is about 20% less than the other patterns that we have seen previously. These are all three of these ones, so 1, 2, and then 3 are all without the rifled barrel. And then you throw in the rifled barrel and you just get this recoil control pattern, and it's a lot nicer, it's shorter. So again, just one of these options that isn't actually listed in the attachment statistics. I don't know why they don't actually end up listing these like statistics in their weapons. Maybe it increases the bullet velocity and that means the bullets go faster and then it ends up tighter together so the gun doesn't move as much. I'm not really sure what actually causes this. But in terms of the best barrels for some of the SMGs in Warzone, of course, the rifled barrel is actually looking a very, very good option in terms of adding that extra recoil control while still giving you a decent amount of damage range. And I know that some of you are going to ask here, of course, as this happened in the last video, this doesn't actually apply to Cold War. I did test it out and the recoil control reductions actually don't appear in Cold War. So this is only applying to Warzone. You can try this in Cold War as much as you like, but it's not going to apply the same effect. Basically, this recoil control reduction is only present in Warzone for some reason, and I don't really know why. But it is interesting to say the least. It's pretty funny that some of these attachments actually just do random things. So if we were to combine something like this particular barrel and our best class setup for each of these SMGs, we'd look at something including the rifled barrel now because, I mean, you just want recoil control with these particular options. So we're going to come up with a couple of different class setups for each of these weapons because, I mean, the recoil control reduction that we do get from this particular barrel is pretty ridiculous here. So in terms of my best class setup with the MAC-10 now, it would look something like this. We're including the agency suppressor here as usual. We just want that extension to our damage range, and of course staying off of the UAVs when we do fire is very, very important here. Being able to move around stealthily is a very, very key tool here. In the barrel slot, of course, we're looking at the new option, which is the rifled barrel. Of course, that effective damage range increase, as well as about a 20% increase to our recoil control for some reason, which is very, very nice here, of course. As I mentioned in the testing that you did see, of course, I don't know why this applies, but it's a pretty cool option that it does. So hopefully that does stick around and we get that decent amount of recoil control from the rifled barrel on these SMGs. In terms of the stock slot, we're looking at something like the SAS combat stock. With this, we do get shooting movement speed as well as aim walking movement speed, which is very, very important for a weapon like this. In terms of the SMG category, of course, you do get a relatively faster aim down sight speed as it is, so we've skipped over the grip here and we're taking that stock slot instead. In the underbarrel slot, we're actually going for the field agent grip because this is the option that does give us the vertical and horizontal recoil control. It doesn't apply to the striker grip, the thing that we did talk about the other day with that melee quickness, and of course that sort of extra recoil controls kinda doesn't apply to these grips. It only applies to something like the bruiser grip on the assault rifles. So then we move, of course, to the ammunition slot as well. That Stanag 53 round drum basically applies a very, very similar effect to the 53 round fast mag. The reload speeds, of course, it doesn't really make too much difference from what I have seen, so 53 round drum mag is just fine. This is something that I would choose for my best MAC-10 class setup in Warzone right now. It allows you to push around everywhere, have really, really good recoil control courtesy of the rifled barrel, and of course the field agent grip, have a decent amount of bullets to fire in terms of the 53 round drum mags, and of course the SAS combat stock is a good option as well. You can of course swap this out if you do prefer for something like a faster aim down sight speed, but if you do include this, you do get the weird little bars on your sort of MAC-10, so if you don't want to include those bars, just take a stock and they get rid of themselves. So again, our AK-74U class setup would probably look something like this. Now again, that GRU suppressor as well, extending out our damage range of course, and that sound suppression. Again, the rifled barrel, as it does offer for some reason that weird recoil control bonus as well as giving us effective damage range, which is super, super nice here. Then of course the Spetsnaz grip to help keep us on target with that rifled barrel as well. Again, 50 rounds, either way you do want to run this. I don't think there's too much of a difference here in terms of aim down sight speed, so you can pretty much choose whatever you do like in this slot. And then of course the GRU elastic wrap as well, aim down sight speed, flinch resistance, and of course aim while going prone. And again, similarly, you can include something like a KGB skeletal stock or a PKM stock, depending on what you do want to choose here. Or even if you want to throw on an optic, that does work as well. This is a fairly rushing class, like you do want to push around with most SMGs, be very, very aggressive. And this does enable you to hit your shots and move around the map very, very aggressively and do a decent amount of work with this particular weapon. Anyway guys, as we said, I don't really know why any of this stuff actually applies. It's kind of a mystery to me as sort of the mix up with the crossover between sort of Warzone and of course Cold War. I don't know what is going on with some of these attachments, but they do have hidden stats, and if you do find any more hidden stats or anything like that, you want me to test them out, check it out, and maybe change up some of my class setups as a result, make sure you do let me know, leave a comment letting me know about these interesting things, because rifled barrel, turns out, recoil control, bruiser grip, turns out, recoil control. I don't know what the go is with some of these attachments, but it is definitely fun to test them out and find new things that make our class setups way better. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching this one. Of course, hopefully this does help you out in your class setup building adventures. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on if you have not already done so, just in case you don't want to miss out on any of the upcoming content. That includes Cold War and of course Warzone stuff, and I will of course see you in the next video. Bye!